Hold up. What if I told you that the sleepy looking XRP chart that you just scrolled past this morning might be holding a monster 400% move that nobody's ready for? Okay, so picture this. You're sipping your first coffee, phone in hand, doom scrolling like the rest of us, and bam, there's this little squiggle on XRP's weekly chart that looks like a half-folded flag. Now, I'll be honest, the first time that I heard bull flag, I thought someone was trying to sell me merch at a rodeo. But this pattern is basically the crypto's market's way of whispering, hey, I'm not done yet. Watch this. And that whisper came from 𝗕𝗙𝗀𝗀𝗀, a chart-obsessed analyst who's been shouting in a friendly, all caps kind of way, that we might be on the brink of something huge. So here's how the story goes. Back in November of 2024, when everyone was still arguing about who really won which election and whether eggnog tastes better than almond milk, XRP was hanging around 50 cents. No one cared. Then, like a teenager who just kind of discovered energy drinks, it rockets to $3.30 by mid-January 2025. Now that surge built the flagpole, the tall bit of the pattern. So think of it like when you cram 5 semesters of study into one chaotic all-nighter. Now, all that energy exploded upwards in one ridiculous burst. But markets, like caffeine crashes, they don't stay hyper forever. February rolled in, my New Year's resolutions already kind of gathered dust, and XRP started sleepwalking in the low $2 zone, tracing lower lows, stepping down, just enough to make everyone second guess their life choices. That sideways drift, according to chart law, forms the flag part. Basically, market slowing down to tie its shoelaces before the next sprint. Now, here is where the plot thickens, like grandma's oatmeal. Now, 𝗕𝗙𝗀𝗀𝗀 pulled out not 1, but 2 yardsticks to measure how tall this next jump could be. Now, he used a logarithmic scale, that is fancy talk for stretching big moves in a way that our brains can actually read, and a plain old vanilla linear scale. Now, on the log chart, he sees XRP tagging $18. The linear view says $5.50, and because we live in a world where everyone wants the balanced diet version, he averaged them out to $11.75, and that's a 415% pop from where we're chilling right now. So let me put that into perspective then, right? Imagine that you bought a kitten for $10 and someone offered to pay you $41 for it after you spent months bonding with the little furball. Now, you'd hesitate, right? Same thing here. Investors are staring at their kitten, wondering whether to sell at 5 or hold for 11 or dream for an $18 moonshot. And before you ask, yes, 𝗕𝗙𝗀𝗀𝗀 even slapped a volatility kind of wiggle room on each target, right? Tracking up, or tacking on, I should say, up to 20% to account for crypto's habit of mood swings. So that kind of big $18, it kind of morphs into a possible 21, and even the conservative 550 actually kind of could flirt with, 660. And I get it, if you're skeptical, you're not alone, right? Crypto Twitter is basically a non-stop group chat where everyone's either a prophet or a troll. Sometimes both before lunch. But 𝗕𝗙𝗀𝗀𝗀's not kind of standing on this hill alone. You've got 𝗕𝗙𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀, the founder, the flamethrower of kind of spicy takes, says that, $20 actually would just be phase 1 for XRP. Even 𝗕𝗙𝗪𝗀𝗪, who once mocked XRP harder than I mock my own haircut from quarantine, is now eyeing $20+. Now, then there's Papa with his Fibonacci extensions pointing at $14, and even market expert JD calling $14 a minimum. So it's kind of like a choir of analysts kind of singing "Don't Stop Believing," right? Only the kind of drums are blockchain transactions. Now, before we slap on our kind of party hats here, we're going to talk about the elephant in the room: timing. Now, bull flags, they have a 67 to 70% chance of breaking upwards. So those are pretty great odds if we're kind of rolling dice in Vegas. Terrifying if we're dumping our rent money into altcoins. And remember, patterns are polite suggestions, they're not legal contracts. So we could see XRP fake out, fall through the flag's floor, and land on my kind of, I guess, reputation like an elephant on a lawn chair. That's the risk. And speaking of risk, let me tell you a quick personal story. I once tried to teach my cousin how leverage works. She's 17, loves K-pops, and thinks margin call is a line from a kind of horror movie. I drew a quick kind of stick figure on a napkin, labeled it "you." Then kind of stacked 10 more napkins labeled "borrowed money," and I kind of flicked the tower, and naturally everything kind of collapsed. That's exactly how reckless trading feels. So if you want to dabble without kind of turning your life into a Jenga game, then jump into our free crypto Discord. Yep, the link is in the description down below. We hang out, we share charts, and we roast each other's predictions before the market roasts us first. There's safety in numbers and memes. Anyway, back to the chart and the chat here, right? The reason that this flag even matters is liquidity, right? Crypto is not the stock market with its kind of ocean-sized pools. A single fat finger order can, at least here, can actually send prices flying like a seagull stealing chips at the beach. Log charts say smooth out the swings, which is why 𝗕𝗚𝗃 likes them for the big picture moves. So picture looking at a mountain range through sunglasses that kind of flatten the peaks. Suddenly you can kind of trace where the next ridge might actually appear. Boom, that's your projection. But let's go ahead and dig deeper. Why did XRP shoot from 50 cents to $3.30 in the first place? Right, remember last November's US elections aftermath, right? Market loves certainty, and for once, no matter which side you are on, crypto got a whiff of maybe regulations won't strangle us tomorrow morning. Now Ripple's ongoing kind of wrestling match with the SEC looked like it might finally end with a handshake instead of a kind of folding chair. Money rushed in, prices exploded, then reality kicked. Or at least came knocking, I should say, right? Lawsuits kind of dragged on, sentiment kind of cooled off, and we entered the snooze mode. The flag formed. And so here's the big challenge then. Can Ripple actually land that final regulatory touchdown? If they do, suddenly every bank that's kind of been tiptoeing around blockchain can tap XRP's on-demand liquidity like kids queuing for lemonade and a kind of July afternoon. Now that fundamental catalyst, plus a technical breakout is the chef's kiss. If, of course, they botch it, though, the chart pattern in the world can, at least in the kind of world, can save us from knee-jerk kind of panic, at least. So I like to imagine the market as a kind of massive school dance then, right? Bitcoin is the popular kid who always gets asked first. Ethereum's the artsy dancer doing, interpretive moves. And XRP, that's the kind of transfer student rumored to have a Lamborghini, but currently stuck arguing with the principal. If XRP walks back in wearing a tux and flashing kind of sentiment or settlement papers, everyone's going to cheer and the price could match the hype. Okay, so let's crunch a few brain-friendly numbers then, right? Suppose that you're going to hold 1,000 XRP at today's, let's say, low $2 price tag. If that average target, $11.75, let's say, hits, then you're staring at nearly 12 grand minus trading fees and Uncle Sam's share, of course. Stretch to the kind of log projection, that's, $18, and you're flirting with 18 grand. And if the volatility top kicks in, well, let's just say that you might finally replace that cracked iPhone screen. But None of this matters if you don't have a game plan, and that is why, before doing anything wild, consider test driving trades on Bluefin, the best up-and-coming crypto exchange in town. Grab the link that's in the description down below, set up a demo, and see, or at least kind of feel out the waters before even diving deep. Now, I can't mention targets without talking about emotions. Watching a chart, approach your sell target is kind of like waiting for toast to pop. You know it's coming, but every second feels longer. People freeze, people forget to sell, or worse, they sell too early. Then FOMO back in higher. I once sold at 250, felt smart for a day, watched the coin double, and spent the next week staring at the ceiling, right? Calculating lost gains like a kind of broken spreadsheet. The moral of the story here, write down your exits before the fireworks start. Future you will thank present you for being organized. We also have to respect the 33% chance that the flag poll fails. So just imagine booking a beach vacation in rainy season. There's a decent shot that you'll spend the week playing board games indoors. That is fine if you pack Monopoly money, right? Less fine if you emptied your savings account. So always stash a stop loss somewhere sensible. Flag kind of breaks down too, and if they do, of course, they do it fast. So slicing through hopeful hearts like a chef through sushi. But let's also assume that the breakout happens. How would that look on the chart, right? First, that we would see a bullish candle powering past the upper trend line, volume uptick, social media exploding with rocket emojis, maybe even a cameo on mainstream finance news. That push might stall at the kind of old high around $3.30. Half the crowd would scream double top and bail. The other half, stays, building liquidity. And once $3 turns from ceiling into floor, well, that's the kind of runway for $5.50, $11.75 and beyond. So it's kind of like leveling up in a video game. Each boss defeated becomes the new spawn point. Now, remember those volatility bands that 𝗕𝗓𝗓 added? Well, they're not just random kind of fudge factors. They actually account for crypto's tendency to overshoot. So think of a kid on a trampoline trying to tag a tree branch. If they jump too timidly, they miss. They jump too hard, they smack their head on the branch and maybe even tumble. Now, the idea, is sweet spot is actually, the ideal sweet spot is somewhere in between, right? So even if we tag, $15 first, a healthy retrace to $13 could actually set up the springboard for $21. That's the kind of trampoline rhythm that markets love. Now, of course, FOMO narratives will fly. XRP to $100. You'll see thumbnails with laser-eyed mascots and all-capped headlines. So keep your cool. Charts measure possibilities, not certainties, and fundamentals still rule the long game. So Ripple has to keep onboarding banks, closing legal loops, and rolling out products that make Swift look like dial-up. If they kind of slack, then any rally beyond fundamentals is kind of a sugar rush waiting to crash. And so here's a hack that I use, right? Every time that price pumps, I pretend it's Monopoly money. Where would you hold fake cash hoping if someone somehow kind of becomes a legal tender in the future? Probably not, right? You probably wouldn't want to hold fake cash just hoping that you could use it later. So you would actually trade some for Park Place, stash some under free parking maybe, keep some for bail money. Let's translate that to real life then. So you peel part off of your kind of stack on the way up, you secure your original capital and ride the house money for the moonshot then, right? Stress levels drop faster than your Wi-Fi when my neighbor's microwave popcorn kind of starts binging. Okay, so quick pit stop then. Have you joined the free crypto Discord yet? Seriously, jump in. I lurk there at, ungodly hours, staring at charts that I doodle on restaurant napkins and laughing at GIFs that perfectly capture the agony of liquidations. Community matters. Crypto can feel like you're sailing alone on a kind of bathtub of at least in a hurricane, I should say. Now, having a crew to compare wave heights with actually keeps you sane and helps you avoid those kind of rogue waves. But even crews disagree sometimes. Some in the server swear the linear target near $5.50 is the smart play. Grab a 140% gain, be grateful, move on. Others root for the log scale glory at $18, maybe higher, quoting previous cycles where coins popped tenfold. Personally, I think the average $11.75 is a god's kind of Goldilocks kind of zone, if you will, right? Not so low that you're undervaluing potential, not so high that you need, divine intervention. And if the flag kind of does break in the wrong direction, well, our stop loss plan kicks in. We patch the boat and we sail again tomorrow. Another angle, of course, is macro sentiment. Elections kind of calmed nerves, but inflation, rate hikes, or even decreasing rates over in the Fed, trade wars, those kind of plot twists, they can yank capital out of risk assets overnight. A single hawkish quote from a federal or central banker, can of course nuke half the gains that you spent months waiting for. And that is why a kind of pattern alone can't be your whole thesis. Marry it with news flow. If regulators start greenlighting Ripple partnerships faster than my grandma's forwards kind of chain emails, well, that's confirmation. If headlines shift towards lawsuits and kind of fines, well, you can put ice on the hype. Okay, let's zoom out to the human psychology then, because people love round numbers, 5, 10, 20. Right? They slap limit orders just below to feel clever. So if we kind of push towards $11.75, expect turbulence at 10. So think of it kind of like hitting the first ceiling in Super Mario. You either duck and slide through a secret pipe, or you kind of bonk your head and fall. Our plan? Keep an eye on volume. Thin volume near $10 might actually hint at a false breakout. Juicy volume says the crowds are ready to smash through. And by the way, trading on Bluefin has been my secret weapon lately. So their interface feels like someone actually asked traders what they wanted. Crazy idea, right? Plus, low fees and lightning execution help when you're kind of scalping those breakout retests. So if you're curious, the link's waiting for you down below. Set up an account, snag whatever welcome bonus that they're throwing around this week, and test your charts like Kung Fu with play money first. Then, if you're comfortable, drop in a small, scale up, and only when the strategy proves itself. All right, let's pull this saga together then, right? We've got a bull flag, a pattern with roughly 2/3 of a chance of continuation. The flagpole measured move, gives us anywhere between $5.50 on a linear chart and $18 on a logarithmic chart, with an average of $11.75. Add a volatility cushion and targets kind of stretch even higher. Analysts outside of our main character, that's, Papa, DJ, Farina, Jeremy, they are actually chiming in with numbers that rhyme with those ranges. And yet, none of this is gospel. The SEC storyline, macro weather, the good old human greed and fear will decide whether this flagpole becomes a rocket or a rusty street light. Our job? Stay curious, stay cautious, and stay connected with a solid community and a platform that doesn't rug pull when volume spikes. Now, if XRP does blast through that flagpole, remember this conversation. Print the chart, frame it, and hang it next to your desk as a reminder that patience plus a plan can beat panic every single time. And if it doesn't, hey, at least you learned the anatomy of a bull flag, met some pretty awesome folks in the Discord, and maybe snagged a welcome bonus on Bluefin. Knowledge compounds, FOMO drains. Choose wisely. So whether you're riding a modest $5.50 wave, strapping in for $11.75, or aiming for the sky with $20+, map your route. Check your gear and never ignore the weather forecast. Crypto's a wild ocean, but with the right crew and sturdy ship, even the kind of choppiest seas can turn into the adventure story that you'll be bragging about for years.